Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session. Thanks for making it here in large numbers. I'll give a very quick introduction to myself and my colleague Saikat and what we're going to be covering, and hopefully it'll be useful for all of you. I'm Sudhir Kamath. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Nazara. Nazara, I think many of you might be familiar with. It's India's only listed gaming company. We own a number of studios. We've also announced a publishing effort where we're trying to work with a number of young, upcoming, as well as established developers for publishing their games, India, Middle East, and international markets. Uh, I'll give you a quick intro of, I'm sorry, Saikat, if you can just, we're both going to be doing the talk. I'll do the first few slides and then I'll hand it over to Saikat and then you'll see him better. But Saikat is the guy that many of you may already have met. He handles a lot of the business development, interaction with the studios, etc. for us. So any of you who's interested in meeting or pitching to Nazara, Saikat is your guy. After that, there are all the contact details that we will share. So we just thought it'll be helpful to lay out what are we trying to cover in this session and what can you expect to get really out of it. There's an initial section which is largely about what is happening in gaming or what has been happening in the last couple of years. Not much forward-looking stuff, but I'll give you at least my views on some of that. So how has the gaming market evolved? What are the recent changes that we've seen? And the second is then much more crystal ball gazing, which is what are the emerging trends? What do we expect to see in future? Those are some of the themes that we hope to cover. We'll also have an open Q&A section at the end, so if there are other questions, other things on your minds, would love to. So first question, right? What is, and we'll try and structure it as a bunch of questions that we try to answer. So what does the gaming market look like in the current year? I think this is something that you've heard a lot, or many of you may have, but it's always worth reiterating. So the chart that you see on the left, when you talk about gaming, gaming is larger than movies, it's larger than books, it's larger than music, and it's larger than all three of those put together. That's something that especially we in India often don't understand because historically games have not been very well monetized. Many people in India obviously believe that Hollywood or Bollywood must be much larger than games. It's not. Globally, the entire movie industry is much smaller than games. In India, that's not the case today, but we're thinking that it is going to evolve in that direction as well. As a segment, it's $188 billion as of last year, as of this year projected. One interesting thing is, obviously you see the COVID boom, as we call it, 2020, 2021, when the market really exploded. Last year saw effectively a little bit of a correction or a pullback from there, so coming back towards a 184 number, but essentially the first time that the gaming market saw a decline after many, many years. This year is back to growth. It's a small growth for now, but it is growth. And we do expect that this trend will continue. So by 2026, in fact, in the next 2 years, we're actually expecting it to cross the 200 billion mark. Overall, we're looking at maybe a 212 billion number. All of these projections that we're using in this presentation are from other researchers or service providers. We've just tried to sort of collate the best that we could find across. So we've given references wherever we could. You can find the info mostly publicly. If you look at what drives growth within these markets, right? So Latin America, Africa, Middle East are probably some of the fastest growing markets right now. As developers, if you're thinking about what markets to target, that's a useful insight. You may be able to find greater spaces for your games to really take market share. China, obviously, US, obviously, and Japan, etc., have traditionally been the largest markets, but that's not where the highest growth is right now. So therefore, you will have larger incumbents who are already sitting there, and you may or may not be able to take share easily away from them. But if you focus maybe on some of these faster growing markets, you may have an easier path ahead. Overall, in this year, we saw, as I said, a growth. If we try and split that down by the platform, so mobile continued to see growth in terms of number of users. So this year, we do expect 2.7 billion gamers going to 2.9 billion gamers on mobile. And sheer numbers, obviously, that's a very, very large number, the largest part of the market. But from a revenue point of view, mobile is about half the market, which is also obviously very, very significant and has really increased over the last few years. But it's kind of flattened for this year. We do expect growth to come back on mobile as well in the coming years. Second, if you look at consoles, a lot of people keep saying consoles are maybe not going to grow as much as mobile, etc. But this year, consoles actually are the fastest growing segment. Uh, Not necessarily in the number of people, that's kind of still stagnant, but definitely in terms of revenue, which also shows that people are, the same people maybe, are willing to spend much more than they were spending maybe last year or before. There's a couple of interesting sub-trends within that, which we'll cover a little bit further. PCs is the kind of in-between market or question mark really about whether that will continue to grow or not, or is that market kind of going to migrate towards either consoles or mobiles? Especially with more powerful mobiles, iPhone 15s upwards in the West, which pretty much can play almost all the games that can be played on PCs. Will that market switch, even though obviously the form factor is very different and smaller? One sub-trend, as I said. So interestingly, in PC and console as well, where historically a lot of the market used to be an upfront purchase, a lot of new hit games have been free to play. And they've actually made, or start off as free to play and then you buy content in game or you buy gear in game, right? And that's the model that seems to be working much more. But if you look at it overall, I'll start from the right end there. So if you look at the PC or the console revenue, more than half of the market is still a paid download. So that clearly still is the largest segment of the market. Microtransactions is about a third. So people are making follow-on transactions, including in some cases with paid games. Market-wise, it's still the US and China, which are 2/3 of the global market for PCs and consoles. So if you are building a game for PC and console, clearly those are the kinds of markets that you are looking at. Free to play that we mentioned. So a large number of new games which have actually hit the top charts on revenue as well were actually free to play. And that's a trend which is, I think, much more recent. So last few years, I think we've seen a lot more of that trend. I'll start off on this section on the emerging trends in gaming, and then I'll actually hand it over to Saikat, and then I'll come back for Q&A. But I like this slide. I really want to talk about this one, right? Which is when we talk about gaming and how the market grows, the theme in a way has been about democratizing how people actually get to really access and play games. Starting off from arcades, where essentially you had to go somewhere, pay someone there, to consoles, where you had a limited number of people who had to have the consoles, to early handheld devices, to PCs, where PCs fundamentally were not just a gaming device, but a multi-function device, where you could also play games, to then a lot of games becoming designed for mobile, which fundamentally we see it as every human in the world will have a mobile sooner or later, which means that every person in the world could potentially be a gamer. So that democratization has happened. AR/VR kind of goes a little in the other direction now, where again you're looking to have a device, but increasingly that also will happen. Saikat, I'll hand it over to you for now. I'll come back again.
Hi everyone, good morning, and I hope you're having a good GDC. It's a great place to sort of take the next leap in understanding the emerging trends in gaming, primarily because if you look at gaming from a democratization angle, and if you look at gaming from these lenses that we are looking at, it becomes really, really simple for us to understand what would work, what would not work, even though the early trends could indicate otherwise, right? So that brings me to what we are very excited about in 2023, and what are the various enabling ecosystems that potentially and eventually would be sort of the defining elements in future. To start with, in a post-IDFA deprecated era, new ATT framework coming in place, scaling of the games on mobile is fundamentally becoming more and more difficult. Social takes a very important step in terms of engaging your users, interacting and enabling them to interact with other gamers, and deriving joy from those experiences. User-generated content is another interesting space. User-generated content along with generative AI, I believe, is truly a game changer, and we'll touch upon that. Transmedia typically indicates or means usage of one IP from one platform, say a movies to a games or games to a movie, and vice versa. It also indicates how people fundamentally interact with brands through branded experiences on, say, Roblox or Fortnite as a platform. Uh, that is truly exciting for us as well. Some of the changes on the payments ecosystem side that may come out as a surprise, and we'll touch upon that on a little later, but payments is emerging in a big way to be a good value driver for a multiple number of players. Cross-platform, VR gaming, cloud gaming, oh, of course. I mean, all of these platforms basically helps you enable you to play across devices wherever you are. If you're traveling, if you are in a cafe, if you are at home, sitting at your couch from the comfort of your place, all of them are truly exciting as well. And then we'll touch upon Web3 and why we believe Web3 still has a little steam left, although there have been many instances where Web3 typically have not worked the way we envisaged it to. Right, so let's start with social, predominantly becoming a core strategy for multiple players in the post-IDFA era, particularly on mobile. On the PC console side, it has always been a primary strategy to enter into the market or a go-to-market strategy for any new launch. But yeah, so some of the ways in which we can look at social gaming is to look at social spaces. Now, these means players coming onto a platform, something like a Travis Scott conference at Fortnite, something like a Lazy Oaf at Animal Crossing, etc. So these social spaces are becoming fundamentally more important. These provide non-gaming experiences to gaming, largely a gaming audience, and they enjoy it, they love it. The second thing that we are seeing as a trend is a lot of these social streaming platforms are enabling streamers to directly play with their consumers, enabling a direct interaction with the influencers, the game influencers, the streamers, to directly play with their consumer and fan base, and probably gain a brownie point, right? I mean, if a fan beats a streamer at his own game, nothing beats the high of that. Sharing of game screenshots, creating your own game IPs from those screenshots, etc., are also getting a lot of traction. And this, I believe, would be fundamentally more engaging for players in the recent future. GlibGG, Plylabs, Turnip, all of them are enabling social interactions, and we believe we are very bullish on that space as well. Brand marketing on mobile is also a next big thing because performance marketing is not turning out the way it used to. And I believe brand marketing gives us that leverage to create a social branding experience and create an ecosystem for a very long period. Of course, UGC is something which we are very excited about. This is an amazing presentation by A16Z. What it indicates, this market map indicates, is if you look at UGC in the broader perspective, you could look at the verticalized and horizontal approach. Verticalized typically means the same genre of games across that particular platform, UGC platform, and horizontal typically means different genres of games. So something like a Roll20 is purely focused on board games. Something like a Roblox is purely an MMO, sort of an environment where multiple players can come in and interact and create their own experiences. If you look at the horizontal thing, which is game first or a platform first, game first typically means UGC content created around a central core loop of the game. So any new game that a user creates typically engages or helps users engage with the core loop in a better manner. On the platform first, it typically means that all of these unique experiences are catering to very different, diverse segments, therefore enabling them to reach a far more or increasing the overall target market that they could otherwise address. Roblox is a great example wherein you can create any experience and distribute your experience across multiple people. So we are excited, very excited about UGC in general, and UGC along with AI, I believe it could be a game changer. Transmedia and IP adoption typically gives you that brand advantage and the social thing that we just spoke about in the previous slide on the social side. You have a ready user base that are willing to interact with those experiences across a different set of platforms. This helps both ways. It helps game developers attract a lot of audience, which are already established with that established IP. It helps the IP owners to reach out to a diverse set of audience, which may or may not be interacting with those brands, or they would want a different sort of an experience with those brands. Some of those examples, and more notably so, is Cyberpunk. If you look at the overall MAUs on the red side, you could look at that the MAUs were kind of slightly declining, but as soon as the Edge Runner was launched on Netflix, which was focused on the Cyberpunk universe, the MAUs kind of shot up. So it helped these game developers interact with their audience in a more meaningful manner, therefore driving more adoption for your game. So it goes both ways. So it's an amazing IP, amazing sort of interaction and integration. If you look at transmedia IP in general, based on the Newzoo report, transmedia IPs typically sell, on average, on a median average, would be at 2.5 million, whereas a normal IP would sell 1.4 million, which basically gives you an advantage of 1.8x over a normal IP. Roblox branded experience are the next big thing. Of course, Barbie Dreamhouse, SpongeBob, and some of these companies that are sort of creating these experiences for their target audience across the Roblox platform is something that we are also very bullish about. Payments is surprisingly coming out in the gaming ecosystem. Very surprisingly, some of the largest public companies, including Playtika and Stillfront, are driving 25 to 30% of their annual revenues directly from consumers. What this means is they are bypassing the entire Apple, Google ecosystem, and it helps them to give a direct connection with their consumers, helping them localize some of the payment solutions that the players otherwise in general cannot get access to if they're hooking onto Google and Apple alone. And it gives them an advantage and gives the VIP players a better experience across their games. Supercell, Moonactive, Scopely also are doing similar direct-to-consumer payments model, primarily through a web shop of their own or leveraging some of the third-party web shop solutions that are available in the market. But it's an interesting space, and it has shot up like crazy. Imagine saving 60, 70 million odd dollars for these larger companies directly flowing into their EBITDA is a great news for the entire ecosystem, which can, again, be funneled into the innovation in the gaming core loop. As a part of the direct-to-consumer model, two of the other things also becomes very relevant and interesting. First is the real-time payments. Of course, sitting here in India, we may be all aware about UPI and how it has basically throttled India into the leader of the real-time payment solutions. Globally, 42% of all transactions on the real-time basis are done in India. Brazil comes second with 15% overall global real-time payment solutions market share. The real-time payment solutions helps you reach out to the users at the hinterlands of a tier 2, tier 3 geography and enable them to pay for games, get those experiences out. I believe as a direct-to-consumer, these solutions can now be very easily integrated into their web shop platforms and therefore a better engagement and a checkout mechanism for players. Buy now, pay later, while it has not been adopted in gaming, or at least I am not aware if it has been, but this also, imagine a game partnering with a buy now, pay later platform just to enable you to check out these transactions in a much more seamless way. So it would be a credit card sort of a revolution for games, and we are very confident that it will be adopted very, very soon. Cross-platform, of course, is a unique way in which players can attract players across a diverse set of platforms, including PC, console, handheld, mobile, browser, and whatnot. Stumble Guys is, of course, a great example of this. They have had a mobile game, very successful, launched it into PC. Of course, there are other players like Quali, Homa, who are trying to port their games into PC, console, and other mobile markets. Almost all new studios that we are interacting with have a cross-platform play in place. They want to cater to one platform first, and eventually moving into other platforms, and that is their active development pipeline. Web games, again, not the HTML5 era. I think HTML5 is already there, and it's growing, and it's doing great. I'm more bullish about the WebGL games, which basically enables users to give a cross-platform experience without going through the development cycles across development on PC, console, mobile, separately. So I think WebGL and soon with the launch of WebGPU, I think this could be something of a space to watch out for. Uh, VR market, surprisingly, is also growing at a rapid pace. If you look at the VR market growth from 2021 to 2023, it registered a massive 44% CAGR growth rate. It is now standing at 23.4 million devices being sold. And of course, these devices being sold will eventually translate into sales of games and sales on microtransactions and whatnot. We are very bullish about free-to-play on VR coming soon with the kind of player base it manages to establish over the next couple of years going forward. If you look at 2026 projections, it basically 2x in sales on the VR devices. Of course, commercial is a big angle still, but with the launch of Apple device and Quest 3, I think this space could be a thing to watch out for, with devices getting cheaper, with cloud getting integrated onto VR, basically making it more accessible. So I think a lot of these interaction effects will take place, and the growth rate is expected to be even higher, according to us. Cloud gaming, despite the common belief and the launch and the shutdown of Stadia basically by Google, uh, at the outset, we believe that the market is not there or the market is not caterable. But surprisingly, cloud gaming is doing better than expected. It is also registering massive growth, better than VR growth. It's growing at a 54% CAGR since 2019, basically doubling every 3 years. It's a great space to watch out for. More notably, cloud gaming at the outset of how it is being integrated on VR, as I just mentioned a couple of slides, a couple of minutes ago, as it integrates with mobile, as it integrates with other cross-platform, and cross-platform itself becomes a major strategy for developers. I think cloud can be a solution to a lot of these questions and answers. Some statistics which are encouraging: Microsoft basically mentioned that 27% of their player base is happy to pay $10 to $20, and they spend roughly 2x more time on these platforms as a part of it, which is very, very encouraging to start with. Eventually, we will be able to cater to a wider set of audience and grow this market. Generative AI is truly transformational in the game development ecosystem. It is truly democratizing, as we mentioned, and coming back to the democratic effect here as well. I believe that generative AI can solve for a lot of problems that small developers and publishers face. It can help you create more deeper, engaging content across platforms. You are not bound by this trifecta of optimization, which is cost, time, and scope, which essentially means that you can optimize time and scope, but not the cost, or cost and time, but not the scope. I believe this would also help small developers create fresh content, and similar to YouTube era, which basically caters to multiple preference types, multiple content types, etc. Game developers would be able to carve out their own niches and operate in those niches very, very beautifully. From a development standpoint, we believe that on the studio side, we are at the level 4, which is partial application of generative AI in their pipeline, which means 1 or 2 pipelines being adopted. There being low barrier to entry, again, more democratizing, and therefore very, very optimistic move for the entire gaming ecosystem. On the game side, we believe we are still on the level 2 side. Moving towards level 3, there are 1 or 2 studios building completely live generative AI content on their platform. So moving gradually to level 3, but the idea is to move to level 4 and level 5 eventually with the advancement of technology. We believe it is possible in the next 2 to 3 years with the amount of brain power that is going into the ecosystem, the amount of money that is flowing into from the venture capital ecosystem, etc. I think we will be there very, very soon. And this is a space that you should watch out for as a developer, as an emerging developer, or as a major brand as well, to incorporate these elements into your game. There are, of course, many limitations to what a major developer or a publisher could do with generative AI, primarily because of the copyright issues, business models not being established completely, the content not being rationalized or curated for a specific type. So all of these things will eventually be solved, we believe, and we are looking at a potential game changer for the entire gaming industry. These are some of the tools that we are bullish about. And this is primarily for smaller developers and indie developers to take and see what is there, what is out there, how you can use these tools to leverage your game development lifecycle. Of course, you should definitely do your own research, visit Product Hunts, Future Tools, Easy with AI, a bunch of other websites to compare your different resources and see what works for you. The last point is Web3. We believe, so if you look at the overall cycle of evolution of gaming landscape, there was a physical sales era, which basically enabled consumers to sell whatever they buy. So any CDs, DVDs that you may have bought, you would potentially go into the reseller market, you would have been able to sell it. With the digital sales era, you don't own anything, you just own the license to use that over the lifetime. And probably consume it or utilize it for your own purposes. So you cannot, it is not transferable. And therefore, we believe Web3 with the ownership lens could potentially be something to watch out for. Of course, with the caveat, the business models on the Web3, we believe, are not yet settled completely. People are trying, and I believe with some business model and select niche of users who are actually looking for these experiences, this industry also could prove out to be great. It's not that the ownership or that the peer-to-peer trading is something which is not active even in the Web2 world. There are multiple marketplaces and other areas where people actually involve in gray market transactions over telegrams, over established websites, etc. But Web3 can help these set of users to engage in a peer-to-peer transaction without the lack of any trust or without getting scammed by the game developer, by the seller basically, and therefore deriving more value and pleasure out of the game. With that, sort of like a small crystal ball, sort of like a summary for what we have done today. We believe global gaming is on a solid trajectory and the growth path. It is expected to touch $200 billion by 2025, although every prediction report extends it to a couple of years. We have heard that it would reach it by 2023, but because of various macro environment, 2025 is more likely outcome now. Free-to-play in PC and console is getting more and more prominence. I think that is an area that if you are a PC console developer, you should definitely explore. Latin America and MENA region are probably one of the fastest growing markets to watch out for. Social gameplay, UGC and generative AI can fundamentally change how users are experiencing content on the game. Web shops, direct-to-payments, buy now, pay later, and direct digital payment solutions, instant payments, real-time payments can help you achieve higher engagement across the users and better experience for your VIP players. Cross-platform and transmedia, again, helps you interact, making games more democratic for players. They can interact across multiple platforms, across multiple genres, etc. And VR, of course, will emerge, according to us, out of its own niche to be a sizable market, not as big as PC or console market today, but it will be a sizable market to cater for. With that, I invite you to questions. Thank you for making it and listening to us.
Hi, I'm Matrita from Google. One question, which you're talking about emerging markets, right? Brazil and Latin America. One big challenge that we see often with the emerging markets is monetization. So what is the right strategy, or how can we crack monetization when we are seeing growth from these emerging markets? Because just DAUs, MAUs will ultimately probably not be sustainable without the monetization.
So one of the ways we believe emerging markets monetization could be tackled is through, so there are various angles and lenses to look at it from. One is definitely higher engagement and higher value creation opportunities for these players across the games that you are promoting. That means hyper-localization, contextualization, pricing, all of these are related to the game and the business part of it. From a more structured approach on how do you reach out to more users, some of the solutions could be integrating some local payment solutions, because the financial inclusion in these markets is not very high, and therefore some of the existing payment solutions like a credit card or a debit card may not work. A digital payment wallet, probably a local one with a large market share, could be a potential solution to that. Reseller market, affiliate marketing could be another. So yeah, I think those are some of the key areas in which people have been able to tackle. If you want to add anything.
I'll just add a couple of small points there. So I think specific to Brazil, for example, there's a very close equivalent of UPI, which is there. So that definitely is an important part there. But the other point in general for emerging markets is if you start with a what works in India mindset, that may actually be closer to those markets than what works in the US mindset. So actually Indian developers almost have a bit of an advantage in that sense. Second, I think recently we've also seen a number of the RMG players from India looking to target some of these markets, and in many ways, the way the market is regulated is similar. Customer behavior is somewhat similar, though the games are different, and so on.
Just a follow-up, you spoke about how to enable easier payments, which is, of course, one of the bigger unlocks we can do. How do we go around changing the mindset of people? Because the typical mindset of these countries that we're talking about is not to pay for something. So how do we approach that mindset change?
I'm actually struggling to hear the question. There's a strong echo here.
Um,
So,
I don't know if it'll help if I...
yeah, I can hear you. Hopefully, it's. Yeah.
Okay. Is this better?
Yeah.
So I was asking that unlocking the easier payment structure is definitely a big thing that we can do. Also, the other part of my question is how do we change the mindset of people? Because the industries that countries we're talking about, the go-to mindset is not to pay for something. Like whatever we can get for free, don't pay for it. So how do we approach that mindset change in these countries where we are seeing the emerging trends?
I think it's the same playbook that kind of has started working for India, right? So India also, people did say that the mindset was not there, people will not pay, but we are seeing very sizable numbers now beginning to happen for F2P games, which are then monetized using IPs. And maybe some of these same things will work in those markets. Microtransactions and then moving up clearly is one idea which I think does seem to work. Um,
So, I mean, if you look at these emerging markets, they have been all mobile first and free to play markets, similar to India. Uh, One of the common themes that you would find across these emerging markets is that games industry is far lesser than books, movies, songs, other forms of media and entertainment. People have grown up linking an entertainment lever with a value lever, which means that for this entertainment, I'm willing to pay because it is valuable for me. Uh, on the game side, because it is free to play first, not even the paid premium on mobile, right? Because it is free to play fast, that value lever is getting established, and we just need a Mario moment for India that potentially could be solved through Free Fire or PUBG. So yeah, I mean, we are very hopeful that the mindset change will follow.
Just one very small tactical kind of example, right? Indians don't mind spending money, but they want to see value for money. So one way to create value for money is you start off something with a high price point, maybe, and then move down, or give a discount and people still like it. I mean, or you start effectively with a paid or a console kind of a product, and then come down to a free mobile way, then charge.
Hello, am I audible? Yeah. My name is Piyush. I'm from Electronic Arts. We discussed various modes of payment, right, which can happen, which can be as an option, but we did not discuss around the crypto payment options or any implementation of blockchain there. Uh, how possible or how do you see future of crypto payments in India, specifically in the gaming industry?
Sorry, I could not hear the question clearly. I think there was some echo with the mic. If you could just repeat it, I'll just repeat it for the larger audience. If you could just voice it out.
We did not discuss anything about the crypto payment options, right? Because how do you see future of crypto payments in India, specifically in gaming industry?
So, if you link crypto to the payment solutions that we are sort of providing, I think it could be a good way to monetize users in the future. But right now, if you look at the overall crypto market, it is very, very volatile, primarily driven by speculation. No value investors sort of putting in and taking it for the long ride. Therefore, immediately in the short future, we don't think that crypto payments could be a good way to monetize, because we are uncertain about the value that will be distributed across the various ecosystem players. And therefore, they will be a little wary of adopting those constructs and those structures. But yeah, there are various Web3 native games which are taking crypto as a payment, but eventually it has to be converted from fiat to crypto at some point of time. So essentially, you are basically doing a fiat to crypto. But yeah, eventually going forward, I believe it could be a solution if we figure out the right business model, if we are able to target the right set of users who derive value from a peer-to-peer transaction and not are just involved in that peer-to-peer transaction because of the speculation models.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. As a pioneer in game industry, how you guys, Nazara, are supporting the blockchain games in India, especially after government implied the new tax scheme? Yes.
So, as a company, we remain kind of bullish on RMG, but obviously, with the current or recent changes in regulation, the tax incidence has increased tremendously. I mean, the law kicked in on the 1st of October, from what I'm hearing from our companies as well as others. The amount of tax being paid has gone up anywhere from 300 to 400%.
Yes.
So it's very difficult for the previous business models to continue to work. So a lot of those companies will fold, change models, do something else. Some of them will survive, some of them will then start growing again.
So, what would be your advice to the startups and all, how they can survive?
See, I'll just go back to first principles on that, right? So I think RMG, Indian customers like playing games where they're putting in some money and they have a chance to win some money. So that model fundamentally works from a customer end. Regulations is an overlay which is making it very difficult or makes it very expensive right now to service that market. What will inevitably happen is some startups will figure out a model that works, or some established companies will pivot into something that works. We do think that's a segment that is worth supporting, exploring. We'll continue to do so. Right now, it's only been about 4 weeks since that regulation changed. I'm not sure yet people have figured it out, but it'll happen. So that segment long term will be there, but I think you'll have to be very thoughtful about sort of how you work.
Yes. So, sir, so do you have any models in particular to share?
Not at this stage.
Not yet.
So at least.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, Sudhir. Great presentation, first of all. You did speak about the social gaming, which is a new emerging trend. By the way, I'm audible to you? Yeah. So, for people like us, what should be the criteria, we should go for while selecting a real-time engagement platform? Because that's the core of social gaming, content creators going live, playing game with audience, and, selling this content to, larger people. So any thoughts on that?
Saket, maybe I'll start off and then you can add. But so I think there's two aspects slightly, right? One is when you're building a completely, like I think when you said social game, what you mean is actually a fully interactive experience. So that's closer to maybe say, like say an Elo is building in India, right? So clearly there is a huge space for that, and it's already been proven that there is a profitable model to be built in that and a scalable model to be built in that. So I think that's clearly something which is already happening. There's a lot of innovation which is coming, especially from Eastern markets, China, Japan, and so on, and then getting used across the world. The second thing I think which we were referring to in the presentation was more saying your regular core games also having social elements built in, more from the point of view of how do you grow the community and how do you acquire users, especially when it is tough to acquire users post IDFA. So I think that is the second, maybe slightly different angle, but yeah, both work.
So social gaming in general is a broad term. I mean, it's social across geographies, across countries would be very, very different. In East Asia, social could be an avatar-driven platform where people are just hanging out, watching movies, etc. In India, it could be more like playing with a streamer. I think that gives them more engagement and attention. And it could be something totally entirely different in, say, Latin America or Middle Eastern parts, right? Or maybe even the US. So, which geography are you targeting and what you are trying to do is something which becomes very interesting. So, they did mention on the user acquisition side. I would like to dive deeper into the engagement side of the games. If you are, nothing can beat the feeling that I played with my favorite streamer and I beat him at his own game. Nothing can beat that high, that rush, right? You have seen celebrity endorsements across games. Uh, while that is good from a brand advertisement and brand endorsement perspective, but nothing can beat the rush if I can actually play with a celebrity and I can beat them in their own game, which becomes a bragging point for me and which is what I'm looking for and the shadows of my Discord servers. So as a gamer, yes, I would be very excited and engaged about it.
Can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. Hi guys. Thanks for the presentation. So you mentioned transmedia IP, right? And I would say for studios like Riot with Arcane, CDPR with Edge Runners, they have a lot of resources to put towards it. So like middle-sized developers or indie developers, should they focus on this? If they want to go about it, how do they do it? Is that even advisable? That's something that I'm trying to understand.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? I mean, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, so developers like Riot, CDPR, they have a lot of resources to put towards transmedia IPs. Smaller developers, middle-sized developers, indie. Is it even advisable?
Yeah.
Is there a scope?
Sure.
Is there a way to get about it? Right?
Yeah.
What is the opportunity for them?
Uh, Thank you for that question. I think it's a great question. There have been some discussions at this IGDC about how small developers can leverage IP and integrate them into into their ecosystem. Uh, what we are excited about is there is an emerging group of service companies which are dedicated to connecting IPs with the right type of content creator. And this is across the globe. Traditionally, this has been done by some aggregators who licensed your game, put it on top of an IP who they had a relationship with, and they launched their own games. That was their publishing vehicle. This was pitched as a publishing initiative. Right now, there are companies which provide this as a dedicated value-added services. Uh, Something that comes to my mind is search licensing, layer licensing. These are some of the companies that are exactly into this space, uh, helping you to leverage. So you do not need to have a larger team. You do not even need to have a dedicated person. You need to have a good product manager who can think of how to integrate that IP into your game meaningfully. Otherwise, you lose out on 30-40% of royalty commissions that you are paying to that IP owner, but the organic traction is not good enough for you to make a viable business out of it. So you need to think very deeply how you integrate the IP rather than the other way around, which I believe is more or less more democratic now.
Sorry. So I guess if there's no more questions, we'll call it a wrap. We won't keep you guys from lunch. We'll be around here if you want to catch up. Saket, you want to explain the QRs?
Sure. So the left hand side is the presentation. If you feel like downloading it just for reference, just to scan some of the reference links, etc., please feel free to scan it. On the right hand side is my LinkedIn and my WhatsApp. Please feel free to scan it and reach out anytime you want to. I will be always there to help you. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day.